Hi, Anonymous. I'm here with the first of two videos on the muscular system. This one's going to be a quickie. A lot of this we have talked about already in class, and you've discovered as you were creating your big body diagram. But I just wanted to go through a couple of the finer points to get you going so that you're ready to move on. So, you know this already. The main function of the muscular system is movement, right? That's kind of a no-brainer. And just a reminder that muscles need to contract in order to produce movement. So they're going to pull. They can never push. Muscles can only pull. And that's just something to keep in mind as we're going through this and trying to remember what the muscles are, what their actions are. And then just a reminder on this idea of the insertion and origin that we talked about kind of earlier on in movement. So a muscle originates where it's attached to the bone that's not moving. And so we call that the origin. And then it inserts into the bone that it is moving. So if we use our bicep as an example, you can do a little bicep curl and you're moving your forearm towards your humerus, right? Towards your shoulder. And so it's the radius and ulna that are moving. So that's where the insertion of the biceps brachii would be. Biceps meaning as to, by, it's got two parts to it. And brachii meaning that it's on the forearm, right? Because remember that was the name for forearm. And then the origin is where it's attached up closer to your shoulder joint, where it's not moving on the humerus. So whatever one muscle can do, remember that another can undo. So it's not the pull of your biceps or the push, I should say, of your biceps moving the forearm away from your shoulder. It's actually going to be your triceps, another muscle that's undoing it. And we'll get to that in more detail here in just a moment. And we're actually going to give those guys some names as well. So some of the other functions of muscle that might not be the thing that you think of right away is that your muscles are maintaining your posture and stabilizing your joints, helping you to move, obviously, but also just like stay erect when you're sitting or stay upright when you're sitting. But one of the functions that I think gets overlooked a little bit is that your muscles are the main source of our body heat. And so the reason for that is that ATP is needed for muscles to contract, and that comes from cellular respiration. And so that cellular respiration, if you remember, is an overall exothermic reaction, meaning that it's releasing heat as it reacts. And in fact, your muscles are like so kind of specialized that each one has its own blood vessel, has its own nerve, its own neuron that connects to it. Each muscle cell, because it needs so much energy in order to do this. And so every time a muscle contracts, it's giving off heat as a byproduct. So this is really important in maintaining homeostasis and really regulating our constant body temperature. And so if you've ever noticed that you get really hot when you work out, it's because your muscles are working really hard. Or if you shiver when you're cold, it's because your muscles are trying to contract to increase your body temperature. Okay, so we're going to just do a quick classification of our muscles, and we're going to talk about kind of this idea that we've got muscles that are working as teams, right? So whatever one muscle can do, the other muscle must undo. So we are going to talk about them in kind of three main groups. So prime movers are our agonists. And so these are the muscles that are responsible for producing a particular movement. And so in this example, our biceps curl, the biceps brachii, which is, the muscle that you feel the bulge in when you curl, is the prime mover in the forearm. So we can see the insertion is down here in the radius, and the origins are on the clavicle and at the top of the humerus here. And so again, prime mover is the muscle that's like mainly responsible, right? And then we've got our antagonists. And these guys are the guys that work against our prime movers. So they oppose or they reverse the certain movement. And so they are usually stretched or just relaxed whenever the prime mover is active. And they can also help kind of regulate or give structure to prime movers by adding a little bit of resistance. And they're always located on the opposite side of the joint from the prime mover. So let's use this example. So in our biceps curl, the triceps brachii here on the back is attached to the ulna, as an insertion, and then has two origins up here on the humerus and on the scapula. And in a biceps curl, the triceps brachii is the antagonist in forearm flexion. So all that means is it's involved in forearm extension. So when a bicep curl is released, the triceps become the prime mover and the biceps become the antagonist, because now our new movement is extension. I know it's a little bit tricky to get your head around, but you have to just think about what is the action that's happening. Is it flexion or is it extension? And then you can name your agonist and your antagonist. And you might want to practice that with a body part right now if you want to. Okay, here's our final group. We've got our synergists, and synergists are muscles that help a prime mover. And so sometimes they're just kind of stabilizing muscles and they'll add a little extra oomph. And so an example might be a fixator. And this is a type of muscle that specifically immobilizes the origin bone to increase the prime mover's effectiveness. And this is also the type of muscle that helps to maintain our upright posture while we're focused on doing our biceps curl. So, for example, in a biceps curl, the brachioradialis and the brachialis, which are not pictured in this, are the synergists in forearm flexion. Forearm flexion. My voice is terrible. And then your rotator cuffs are in your shoulders. So those the rotator cuff isn't just one thing. It's like a group of muscles that are working to help you rotate your shoulder, are the synergists in forearm flexion. And they're the fixators. So they're the fixators in the muscles. All right, forgive me. I had to stop for a quick coughing fit here. So here's an example of a fixator. Your brachioradialis muscle, which is not shown in this picture, but it would lie right here underneath the biceps brachii, is going to be really, really helpful in keeping the humerus still. And in fact, it contracts actually at the same time as the biceps brachii. When we get to the discovery stations, you'll see that that's one of the synergists that we're going to use as an example for this unit. Okay, I know that we talked about, let me just, as a recap, those are the three different types of classifications for muscles. So we've got our prime movers, which are also known as our agonists. We've got our antagonists that work do the opposite reaction to the agonist or the prime mover. And then we have our synergists, which are stabilizing muscles or fixators that kind of help the prime movers do their job. So the last bit that I want to talk about, and this I think is a bit of a review because we talked about different tissue types earlier in the term, is just a reminder that we have three types of muscle tissue. And so we have cardiac muscles in the heart that are involuntary, so we can't control them. They're striated, which means they're kind of striped. They look a lot like skeletal muscle, but you can see that they're sort of branching and slightly different to what the skeletal muscle looks like down here. But their job is to pump blood throughout the body using the heart as the big pump. We also have smooth muscles, and these are muscles that kind of look a lot like other types of cells. They're not striated. They're not like long and stringy. They don't have the stripes on them. And these are going to be like found in our visceral organs. So they help kind of move things through your intestines or your esophagus, or even areas like your pupil in your eye that you can't control, or the inside lining of your blood vessels when your blood vessels need to constrict or expand. Okay, finally, we've got the muscles that we're working with right now, our skeletal muscles. And these are generally attached to bones. There's some exceptions in your face. Your face is kind of weird. But they are the only muscles that you can contract voluntarily to produce movement. All right, friends, this is it from me today on your muscles sort of overview. Hopefully this will help. And what your activity in class today is to take a worksheet around to some different stations, which will help you answer some questions using your big body diagram that you made last week. And hopefully at the end of that, you'll feel kind of better prepared and have some time to practice before we do the muscle name and action quiz in our next class. All right, take care, friends. I'll see you soon.